Hello and welcome to this update on assessment and grading for 2021 at Bryntirion Comprehensive School. My name is Mr. Anderson and I'm assistant teacher with responsibility for assessment at Bryntirion. We would like to share the next few moments going through with you a presentation that we've done with the learners in years 11, 12 and 13 and for those two groups in year 10 who will be receiving grades at the end of this academic year. This year we've been asked to provide students with a centre-determined grades. These grades must be awarded on the basis of demonstrated attainment in areas of the qualification content that the learners covered. They must be based on a holistic judgment underpinned by sufficient evidence of demonstrated attainment across key themes and skills. And they are not an attempt to indicate any potential in a subject. It is really important to remember that what we're talking about here is pupils demonstrating evidence of their learning, their skills, their knowledge and understanding. Okay, and in order for us to determine a grade, then we must have that evidence for us to do that. At Bryntirion, we are taking a two-pronged approach to ensuring that we get the evidence to ensure that we can provide a centre determined grade that is reliable, it is fair, it is robust, okay, and it's based on the evidence that we have. So we'll have the first prong is our main evidence. With this, we'll be using WJC past papers, okay. Some of these have been adapted to take in consideration the changes in specification. The second part of the main evidence will be non-examination assessments where applicable. Some subjects have these, some subjects don't. So for example, science and maths do not have non-examination units, whereas subjects such as product design, technology and IT, they do have them, okay, so PE as well. Some of these non-examination units and assessments may be incomplete. The departments have been working on with pupils to make sure these are completed as fully as possible within the time we've actually had. Okay, so the WHC adapted past papers, just to reassure you that we can actually adapt these papers a little bit further. And we would only be assessing the pupils on work that we have covered at Bryntirion over the last 2 years for these courses. Okay, if there are topic areas or themes which we have not started to teach or will not be able to be completed in a short pace of time, and we feel that these are not necessary for future progression, then they will be taken out of the adapted past papers. Our confirmatory evidence will be other assessed work. Okay, so for that, some of the work may have been done in year 10, it may have been done in the autumn term. Some evidence may come from work which was done during the last lockdown period. However, that confirmatory evidence is just that, it is to confirm. In terms of the centre determined grade, any work which was done before our centre policy on determining the grade can be seen as being done under non-high stake controls. Okay, so for example, a pupil may say that I didn't really know that the work I was doing was for this purpose of determining a grade. Therefore, all other assessed work which has been previously completed will be seen by us as only being used to confirm a judgment, and it will not necessarily determine a judgment. Okay, so in isolation, confirmatory evidence would not be used to determine a grade. Now, in order to support your children through this process, we have been looking over the last few weeks and months of making sure that our teaching and learning process ensures that the pupils that we have got in Bryntirion are being ready for the next stage in their careers, whether that's to carry on with learning into the sixth form, whether that's to carry on from year 12 into 13, whether it's to leave school at the end of this year from year 13 and go on to higher education or to apprenticeships or to the world of work. So each subject will have a delivery plan for the gathering of assessment evidence over the period from the 12th of April to the 28th of May. The students will undertake learning experiences to prepare for the gathering of that evidence. We will inform pupils what work will be developing, what skills areas will be developing, what key themes will be developing over a series of lessons. And then pupils will be tested through the use of the adaptive past papers to gather evidence on those pieces of work we've been covering in the lessons previously. Okay, we are able for them to take the assessments in the classroom, so we know exam-based exams, okay, in exam rooms. These all take place in the classroom. The assessments, we are allowed to chunk these up into smaller sections. In general, these sections will last roughly 45 minutes maximum. Okay, the reason why we've got 45 minutes as the maximum for the majority of learners is because of access arrangements. Okay, so if pupils need a 25% extra time because of access arrangements, then that will be taken into account and we can get the sessions finished within the hour. All access arrangements are being put in place. Staff have been fully made aware of those. So please be reassured that our approach, okay, and the ethos that we have is for us to be teaching, and then gathering evidence. So the pupils are learning, it's chunked up for them, they have an understanding of what is coming up, the assessments that are coming up. But there will be some controls that are needed while we gather this evidence. Okay, these will be similar to the high-level controls that we have for non-examination assessments at present. And that is that there is sufficient supervision of every learner to enable work to be authenticated, and that the work of that individual learner submits for assessment is his or her own work. Now, there are some examination level controls that will be need to put in place when we gather the evidence. So these are, and part of our rules anyway, pretty much in class when we're doing assessments, is that phones should be switched off and left in bags. Smartwatches will be removed and placed in bags as well. No resources other than those required for the assessment task should be available to learners. These are not open book assessments, okay? These are summative assessments, and as such, it will only be the resources which are needed for that assessment which will be on the desk. There should be no disruptive behaviour that will affect other learners. Okay, we're gathering evidence so that your children can show the skills, knowledge and understanding they have in the course content that has been delivered to them to date. We ask them for the bags to be put under the floor and desks. As part of this process, we've got quite a lot of quality assurance going ahead in the school, and for part of that process, what we'll be doing as SLT and examination officers within the school, we'll be walking around and monitoring the delivery of the assessments to make sure those controls are taking place. Feedback. The use of adaptive papers in this series, and these are just the adaptive papers, is a summative process, which means that it is an end process. So as such, once a section of a paper has been completed, so we're chunking these papers up, they may be a unit 1, for example, which is in 3 parts. Once that part has been completed, the work of the student will be retained and not given back. We will not be issuing any grades or marks for sections of the adaptive past papers to pupils or to parents. The reason for this is it is very difficult to grade a very narrow part of a paper, and by giving that, it might give false hope to pupils and parents. Okay, we will be working with your pupils to make sure that they're really prepared for these assessment gathering evidence tasks. Okay, but they are summative process. Now, one of the bits that we are working on at the moment is conscious and unconscious bias. And one of the quality assurance processes we brought in is that pupils will not actually be writing their names on the papers that we're giving out. Okay, what will be on there is their centre number. Okay, we believe that that will give us an extra layer of sort of to make sure that we're not falling into any conscious or unconscious bias. So that's the reason why we're doing that. We will also have a lot of moderate standardisation in place so that staff understand the mark schemes that they're marking against. We'll also have moderation procedures in place to quality assure the marking, okay? So that when it comes to grading, you can ensure that that evidence was gathered and marked in a reliable, fair and robust manner. When we come to grading, okay, there's a lot of information that is being shared with us and updated very regularly. Okay, one of the reasons why we're taking time to disseminate information to you is because how quickly it changes. All right, the grade for your children will be determined using a best fit model, where strengths in some areas may balance shortcomings elsewhere. We will need to take into account a range of assessment objectives, the weightings in the specification, to make sure that these and the grade descriptions provided by WJC. We will also consider the conditions under which the assessments tasks were taken. For example, were they supervised, were they unsupervised? We know that some of our learners may have or may need to work off-site. We have got contingencies in place for that. That would include the use of teams under time conditions, okay? But we do need to look at the quality of the work which is done at home compared to what information we've already got in school. Duration, we're going to try to make sure that the length of these assessments is roughly in line with what the length of the assessment would be if it was a normal examination for that unit. The final grade should be based on a judgment of evidence across units and assessment objectives. So it's not just based on a narrow part of the specification. So for example, for a lot of specifications, there may be 2 or 3 units. So doing well in one unit would not on its own justify a high grade. It would be a realistic judgment. The final point here is where there is insufficient evidence or where the evidence suggests attainment is below that required for the lowest grade of qualification, that is G at GCSE or E at A level AS, then the students may be awarded a centre-determined grade of a U. Now, when we go through the grading process, okay, staff will be making these judgments and looking objectively at the data and evidence they have in front of them. Now, before we put some key dates in to you, okay, but these may be subject to change as things develop over the next couple of months. By Easter, the school will inform learners and parents how they will be assessed and graded for each qualification. So this is an overview today, okay? A guidance document with this will be sent out, which will detail all I've talked about at this moment. But you will also receive for each subject a summary of the assessment plan that they will be doing, along with a summary of some key themes and times. I'll show you that in a moment. From the 12th of April, 28th of May, like I said, we'll have face-to-face teaching and the additional assessment using the past papers. With GCSE classes during the week beginning the 24th of May, we'll be looking at the Welsh orals and taking time to do those. Most departments will be finishing their assessments just at the start of that week, which gives some time. This is to be confirmed, but on the 28th of May, it looks like that learners in years 11 and 13 will finish. However, some may be required to attend school for vocational qualifications. We are still awaiting updates about vocational qualifications. These have not been finished yet. We're looking for a 2-week period, so this may be from the 7th to the 16th, or maybe from the 7th to the 18th. For year 12, I'm on a blended approach to learning, okay? Working at home. This will be in form of a reading week. We've done this over the last 3 or 4 years, or a bit longer actually, to get them ready for the day 2 studies. It also replicates what they would encounter at university, so developing those skills ready for future aspirations. By the 22nd of June, the provisional centre-determined grades and learning decision-making records will be issued to students in year 10 to 13 who will be graded this year. So you will be provided a report which tells you the grade that your child has achieved, plus how we came to that decision. Okay, so it'll be and then you will be able to appeal if you feel that any of the processes that we have gone through do not follow what we have said. Okay, so there's 22nd of June is when we'll get these provisional centre-determined grades out to you. Then there'll be a period of 2 days where you can look at those and then request an appeal. The WJC are still to provide us with the appeals information. Once we have that and how to appeal, we'll let you know. We've then got a week pretty much to review those appeals. So we'll be looking at the pupil evidence, the decision-making records to see if the processes that we put in place are followed. One thing that I'd say to add to this is that we have submitted this week our centre policy for grading 2021 to the WJC. We'll be getting feedback on that by the 12th of April. Once that is given to us, we will then publish that onto our school website so you're fully aware of the policy relating to this. We cannot share that with you, unfortunately, until we've had it ratified by WJC. And then around the 1st of July, we will submit our provisional grades to the WJC. They'll be provisional that date, and then on the 10th of August, AS and A2 results will be provided by WJC on results day, and that will be the 12th of August for the year 11 and 10 learners. So what type of information can you expect by the end of the week? This is an example of double board science. So we got our 3 main evidence parts there. So we got adaptive past papers, so you'd see which units would be covered. Okay, NEA in science, there are none in there. However, you may have deadlines, you may have some key information given to you about the NEAs. And then finally, any other assessed work that we may use to confirm will also be given to you, so you're aware of what is already in place. We will then provide you with a breakdown in this format. Okay, we run a bi-weekly timetable of Bryntirion, so we'll be looking at breaking it down into 3 fortnights plus the last week of term, which is the 7th week. Okay, so for example, this is an example of a double board science. An example, this is not the exact one. Okay, so we may tell you some of the high level themes or topics that will be being gone over and developed in that part of that session. So for example, we've got classification and biodiversity, cell division, and stem cells, sorry. And then the pupils and learners would then be assessed on that content and skills that will be delivered for those. Okay, so we're going to be trying to give you that information. It'll be provided you by the end of the week, along with a guidance document to go alongside this. Finally, what we'll be doing then with pupils in registration periods and in their lessons, we provide them with a weekly timetable, so we'll have a sort of like an assessment calendar for them, where they can note down when they have assessments in which lesson, the subject and the themes. If there are going to be any assessments starting the week beginning the 12th of April, we've asked departments to inform the pupils this week. Some people might think coming back after Easter and then going into an assessment may be a little bit too quick. However, there may be some subjects which are ready, so some subjects may have 2 or 3 lessons at the start of that week. Some may have double lessons on the Monday, for example, and they'd be ready for an assessment early. Okay, by actually starting assessments in that first week, it does spread the assessment cycle out, so it's not always ending up on the last couple of days in the second part of the fortnight. Okay, if there are any questions related to this presentation, can you please email the school, okay, on the school's admin address, and I will endeavour to get back to you as quickly as I can. Obviously, we look forward to meeting you at some point again, face to face. Okay, it's been a very strange year. Please be reassured that at Bryntirion we've got our learners' best interest at heart, and everything we're doing is to make sure that they can achieve to the best of their ability. Thank you for listening, and hopefully we'll see each other soon.